I'm Jean-Claude Vaxan. I am the founder and CEO of Foundry Gyms in London. I also run JCV Consulting, which is a mentorship group and support network for independent gym owners. Yeah, people absolutely over or underestimate how much it'll cost to open a gym. I would say in the training gym community, people grossly underestimate how much it's going to cost. I don't know about percentage-wise, but I think the days of opening a small group PT gym on a shoestring and being successful are gone. I do think you can still open a gym on a shoestring in some markets, depending on your aspirations for the gym and how quickly you want to move. But I think most people are inherently risk averse, high drive, but risk averse, and they want to do it for as little risk, brackets money, as possible. I think most people waste money in two areas. One is kit, either too much equipment or they overspend on the wrong equipment, stuff that's for them rather than for the members. And then I think the other area is fit out, cosmetics. Training gyms don't need 70 grand marble floors or walls. I think people build gyms for themselves. I think people also build gyms for their first 50 clients, the early adopters, the people that validate their way of thinking, being and seeing the world, and which is fine at the beginning. And you might get to 50 to 100 members with those early adopters who think like you think. But if you want to grow a bigger gym, the next 50, 100 people will not be the same as the first 50, 100 people. I once saw an independent PT gym spend 70 grand on a marble wall in reception. In terms of the fit out, it's the costs that catch people out, mostly in terms of the fit out, are electrics and plumbing. I think they can, there's a lot more involved to do that well. I think that's two areas that you really don't want to cut corners on. And then the other thing I think is around legals, stamp duty, rent deposits, legal fees, lease negotiations. I think the answer is the same. I don't think you should ever try and cut costs on base fit out costs, because I think they're false economies. If you cut corners on electrics and plumbing and some of the base fit outs today, you will certainly pay more for them at some point in the near future. And I think the other one is, never cut costs on your legals and your lease, because again, it will catch you up. I think with equipment, as with the fit out, anything, you can create a premium gym without it being expensive, because premium is about experience, it's about touch, it's about coaching. And so the equipment is really, really important, because it's at the bedrock of everything you do, your coaching product. The answer is to have less of it that's better quality, rather than have more of it that isn't quite up to scratch. If you try and do everything as cheaply as possible and cut corners, you will struggle, because the training gym is all about creating a premium experience, and ultimately, from a commercial standpoint, charging a high yield. You needed to charge a decent rate, because we're low volume, high yield businesses. If you cut corners and do everything cheaply, it's very difficult to do that, because it's hard to communicate the value proposition. I think one of the smartest ways that you can open a gym on a tight budget is to get in with the landlord. There are an increasing number of landlords who will partner. That could be share of profit, that could be scaled rents, and there's a lot of landlords in some locations who will provide quite hefty capital contributions to help you do the fit out, and that's linked up with your lease and how you pay for your occupancy costs. I've made just about every mistake in the past, and I've been taught all the lessons probably. Our first gym, I bought all Atlantis kit, all Watson dumbbells, very little floor space, and I built a gym for the way that I trained and the way that I saw the world. After a successful 12 months, we needed to change all of that. So we ended up giving away some of that kit In fact, I've still got one of those bits of kit in our Vauxhall gym, which is an Atlantis glute ham raise, which I still to this day think is a brilliant bit of kit, but are completely redundant in a training gym like ours. There's a couple of ways, I think, of opening a new gym. One is the more traditional way, which is to go from scratch. You find a location, you go from shell, you fit it out, and you open your gym. The second option is to find an existing gym and buy secondhand. And you can either do that with a successful business or a distressed operator. The pros of opening the pros of opening a gym from scratch is that you get to do the design, you get to do it exactly how you want it. The cons are that you're under pressure from a pre-sale standpoint, and it can be a little bit more expensive because none of the dirty work is done. Yeah, so you haven't got the drainage, the toilets, all of the rest of it. Conversely, if you buy a gym that already exists, especially one that's operational, you've got a base of members, so you're under less pressure from a pre-sale standpoint, which has an impact on how much money you need to open that gym. And then from a fit-out standpoint or capex standpoint, a lot of the work is done. So you might want to make some cosmetic changes, and you will certainly want to change the branding and all the rest of it, but you're not starting from scratch. You're not building toilets and putting in drainage and electrics, and a lot of that work is done, which is expensive. How much you need for a build will depend on the size of the location, the market that you're in, and your aspirations for the business. But ballpark, you're looking at somewhere between 100 and 250 grand. Again, how much you should spend on equipment will be determined on the size of the facility and the location and maturity of market and competition and other factors. But you're probably looking in the region of 50 to 100 grand for most small to medium-sized training gyms. For legal fees, as a ballpark, would be between 10 and 15 grand. Rental deposits will typically be somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your annual rent. If your rent is 100 grand a year, your rent deposit will be somewhere between 25 and 50 grand. What you budget for marketing will be dependent on the market, competition, and other factors. But marketing starts 16 weeks out, and as a ballpark, you want somewhere between 10 and 25 grand for pre-opening and post-launch budget. If I had 100 grand versus 200 grand to open a gym, I would spend it differently in 2 ways. I would have a more stripped back fit out and I would have less equipment, but I would not cut corners on the location or the size of the unit.